They left you chained, but God left you chosen. You think losing them was a curse? Wrong. It was God's hand cutting your chain so you could rise without permission. This channel is not for the weak, it's for the chosen. Subscribe now or stay stuck where God already removed you. Don't get left behind watching others rise while you stay chained. Your time to rise is here. The chains that held you down were never made of steel. They were not forged in iron, locked in prisons, or bolted into walls. No, the chains were people, smiling faces, soft words, fake promises. They looked like friends, lovers, family, allies. They came dressed as comfort, but they were cages in disguise. You thought they were holding your hand, but they were tightening the rope. You thought they were walking with you, but they were dragging you in circles. And the worst part, you didn't even notice it at first. Because chains disguised as love are the hardest to see. God saw it long before you did. You begged him to bless the people you held closest, but he already knew they were poison. You begged him to make them stay, but he already knew their presence was your prison. That's why he ripped them out of your life. Not gently, not politely. He tore them away, violently, painfully, so you could finally rise without their weight around your neck. Because he knew something you didn't, you would never cut the chains yourself. You were too loyal to people who were never loyal to you. And it hurt, didn't it? When they left, when they betrayed, when they rejected you. It felt like loss. It felt like abandonment. It felt like death. You thought God had turned his back on you, when in reality, he was saving you. Because some blessings don't look like blessings. Some blessings look like breakups, like betrayal, like people walking out of your life with no explanation. That silence was protection. That loss was deliverance. That rejection was God's intervention. The chains were the people you refused to let go of. The ones you gave chance after chance. The ones who kept you small. The ones who clipped your wings while pretending to help you fly. God saw that you were blinded by your need for their approval. So he did what you couldn't. He ripped them away. And the reason it felt so violent is because chains don't break softly. They snap. And when they snap, it shakes your entire life. You prayed for strength. God gave it to you in the form of separation. You prayed for freedom. God answered by removing the ones who enslaved you emotionally. You prayed for purpose. God's response was to clear the path of every person who blurred your vision. And because you thought love meant attachment, you mistook his removal for punishment. But listen carefully. Chains do not leave quietly. They leave with pain. And that pain is proof that you were bound. Here's what you need to learn. Not everyone you lose is a tragedy. Some losses are surgical. God doesn't always explain why he removes people. He doesn't hand you closure. He doesn't send you an essay. He doesn't always let you peek behind the curtain. He removes in silence. He removes through betrayal. He removes through rejection. And when you cry, "Why me?" he answers with a single truth: because you couldn't rise while chained to them. Every person he stripped away was a weight you didn't recognize. Every friendship that collapsed, every relationship that shattered, every connection that vanished. All of it was subtraction that made you lighter. Because you were not designed to walk bound. You were designed to rise. And chains, no matter how pretty, always pull you down. Stop romanticizing your captors. Stop calling chains loyalty. Stop begging for the return of what God himself removed. Because if he allowed them to go, they were never meant to walk with you into destiny. Some people are seasonal. Some people are lessons. Some people are curses disguised as comfort. And when you hold on to them, you insult the God who removed them for your freedom. Think about it. If they were meant to be permanent, they wouldn't have left. If they were meant for your future, their loyalty would have matched yours. If they were truly aligned with God's purpose for your life, they would have pushed you forward instead of chaining you in place. The fact that they're gone is not an accident. It's a sign. And you need to stop crying over signs that scream protection. Understand this. Chains don't always want to leave. Some of them would rather stay attached to your spirit forever. That's why God had to drag them away. Because you wouldn't have had the courage to cut them off yourself. You would have stayed bound by guilt, by comfort, by history. But God has no interest in your comfort. He's interested in your destiny, and destiny requires separation. Yes, it feels like loss, but it's liberation. Yes, it feels like betrayal, but it's freedom. Yes, it feels like death, but it's resurrection. The people who left didn't take anything from you. They released you. They set you up to finally rise without carrying their weight. And one day you'll thank God not for what He gave you, but for what He took away. So don't chase what He removed. Don't beg for doors He closed. Don't run back to cages disguised as relationships. When chains fall, leave them on the ground. Don't pick them back up. Don't polish them. Don't call them gold. Chains are chains, no matter how much you once loved wearing them. From this day forward, stop seeing loss as punishment. See it as pruning. See it as God cutting off what was choking your growth. See it as a father who refuses to let his child stay bound when freedom is waiting. Stop crying for the chains. They were killing you. God removed them so you could rise without them. And here's the dark truth you must carry. Some of the people you're mourning were never on your side. They smiled in your face while tying knots behind your back. They clapped for you in public while laughing at you in private. You thought they were supporters. They were saboteurs, and God loved you too much to let them keep their hands on you. Chains do not define you anymore. People do not own you anymore. You rise now, lighter, freer, more dangerous than ever. And when you finally take flight, remember this: it wasn't their loyalty that set you free. It wasn't their love. It wasn't their presence. It was their absence. It was their removal. It was God's hand cutting away every person who wasn't built for your future. So let them go. Let them stay gone. Let them live with the weight of losing someone they could never chain again. And you walk forward. You rise higher. You live louder, because the chains are broken and you don't owe them anything anymore. God removed them so you could rise without chains. And rise you will. Rejection. The sting nobody wants, the wound everyone fears. You begged for acceptance, and the door slammed in your face. You tried to hold on, and they pushed you away. You thought rejection meant you weren't enough, that you were weak, unworthy, disposable. But here's the truth. They never told you. Rejection is protection. That no you cried over was God's yes to your future. That door that slammed was God sparing you from walking into a prison. That person who turned their back was God shielding you from destruction you couldn't see. You saw it as loss. God saw it as rescue. You wanted them to choose you, but God knew their loyalty was poison. You wanted that opportunity, but God knew it would kill your growth. You wanted the seat at their table, but God knew the table was cursed. And because you couldn't let go, He let them let you go. He let rejection do what your loyalty never would: free you. Think carefully. If you had been accepted everywhere you begged, you would still be chained. You would still be trapped in circles of betrayal. You would still be surrounded by people clapping for you in public while sharpening knives in private. That rejection wasn't humiliation. It was insulation. God fenced you off from battles that weren't yours, people who weren't for you, and futures that didn't deserve you. It burns, doesn't it? Being left out, being ignored, being overlooked. It feels like hell. But in reality, it's heaven pulling you back from the edge. Rejection forces you into a new direction. Rejection shatters illusions. Rejection makes you walk paths you never would have chosen if comfort had its way. And in that darkness, you discover something they never wanted you to see: your power. The ones who rejected you thought they were winning. They thought they proved their superiority. They thought your silence meant defeat. But rejection is not defeat. Rejection is refinement. It strips away illusions. It exposes what's fake. It clarifies what's real. It takes away what you thought you needed so you can discover what you actually are. Here's what nobody teaches. Rejection is alignment. God uses it as a tool to protect destiny. If they could stay, they would corrupt it. If you got that opportunity, it would destroy you. If you forced your way through every door, you'd walk into traps you weren't built to survive. So He closes the door. He allows the betrayal. He orchestrates the silence. Because rejection saves your life more often than it ruins it. Stop taking it personally. Rejection is never personal when God is involved. It's strategic. You think they didn't see your worth. Wrong. They saw it, and they knew they couldn't handle it. You think you were forgotten. Wrong. You were hidden until the right stage was prepared. You think they discarded you because you weren't valuable. Wrong. God removed you because your value was too high to waste there. Rejection doesn't say you're worthless. It says you're preserved. It says you're set apart. It says you're untouchable by the wrong hands. That relationship you wanted to last forever, its collapse was God removing poison from your bloodstream. That job that slipped away, its rejection was God sparing you from smallness. That circle that pushed you out, its betrayal was God cutting off access before they could kill you spiritually. Yes, it hurts. It's supposed to. Chains don't snap without pain. But pain doesn't mean punishment. Pain means protection. Pain means purification. Pain means you've been spared something that would have buried you alive, and every tear you cried over the people who left, God collected as evidence of the chains he broke. Now, you rise differently. You rise with clarity. You rise without begging. You rise without needing validation from tables that were never meant to seat you. You rise without forcing your way into rooms that can't contain you. Rejection redirected you into purpose. You didn't lose anything worth keeping. You were kept from everything not worth having. This is the lesson. Stop knocking on doors God closed. Stop begging for people God removed. Stop cursing the rejection that saved your life. When you feel the sting of rejection, remember this. It is not denial. It is deliverance. You're not forgotten. You're hidden until it's time. You're not abandoned. You're protected until the battlefield is clear. They wanted you to think rejection broke you. But look closer. That rejection cut the chain. That rejection turned into fuel. That rejection stripped you of illusions and gave you strength you never had before. You're not standing in spite of rejection. You're standing because of it. God removed them so you could rise without chains. And rejection was his tool. Rejection was his scalpel. Rejection was his protection. So the next time they say no, the next time they push you out, the next time you feel the sting of being unwanted, don't beg, don't chase, don't collapse. Look up, because heaven doesn't waste rejection. Heaven uses it. And what heaven removes, hell can't touch. You thought rejection was the end, but rejection was the beginning. Loneliness. The word people fear more than death. They drown themselves in noise, in meaningless company, in shallow conversations, just to avoid the silence. They call it punishment. They call it emptiness. But here's the revelation. They never wanted you to understand. Loneliness is not a curse. Loneliness is sacred training. Every chosen one walks through the wilderness. Every fighter worth remembering has faced the silence. God doesn't crown you in the crowd. He crowns you in the desert. Because solitude strips away illusions. Solitude burns out dependency. Solitude forces you to confront yourself without masks, without distractions, without excuses. That's why loneliness feels like death, because part of you does die there. The weak part, the needy part, the chained part. Understand this clearly. People avoid loneliness because it exposes them. In the quiet, you hear thoughts you buried. In the silence, you face wounds you've ignored. And most people would rather stay busy than deal with themselves. But you weren't allowed that escape. God isolated you. He removed the crowd. He silenced the voices. He blocked the doors, not to break you, but to build you. What happens in solitude is sacred. That's where the foundations of warriors are laid. That's where discipline is born. That's where you stop begging for validation because there's no one left to clap for you. That's where you learn to move without applause, to grind without recognition, to fight without an audience. And when you rise from that training, no betrayal, no rejection, no abandonment can break you again, because you've already faced worse, yourself. God hides his strongest weapons in the dark before he releases them into the light. Look at every story of transformation. Silence was the furnace. Moses alone in the wilderness. David alone with sheep. Jesus alone in the desert. Isolation before elevation. Separation before recognition. If you're walking alone, it's not because you're forgotten. It's because you're in training. Heaven sharpens you when no one else can see. Loneliness is where you learn what people can't teach you. Discipline, self-respect, focus, hunger. You stop leaning on weak voices. You stop craving fake love. You stop depending on fragile approval. And in that silence, you learn that God alone is enough. That realization turns you dangerous because once you understand you don't need anyone, no one can control you. This is the dark beauty of solitude. It kills dependency. And dependency is the chain that enslaves most people. They need crowds. They need friends. They need constant distraction. That's why they never rise. They're too afraid of hearing their own voice. But you embraced the silence. You walked into it. You didn't run from the loneliness. You let it shape you. And that's why you will rise higher than those still clinging to noise. Do not mistake sacred training for abandonment. You weren't abandoned. You were chosen to be pulled away. You weren't rejected. You were hidden to be prepared. You weren't left behind. You were set apart. Chains break in silence. Giants are built in solitude. Kings and queens rise from deserts, not crowds. Think about it. If you had stayed surrounded, you never would have discovered your own power. If you had stayed attached, you never would have realized how strong you could be without anyone. You were forced into solitude because God wanted you to find the version of yourself that doesn't beg, doesn't cling, doesn't break. That's the version that will carry your destiny. That's the version the world fears. Loneliness is not your enemy. It's your mentor. It teaches you to live without applause. It teaches you to fight without recognition. It teaches you to grow without permission. The silence you cursed is the silence that raised you. And one day, the very people who thought your isolation was proof of weakness will see the strength you built there, and they'll realize what they lost. So stop hating the quiet. Stop running from the solitude. Sit in it. Learn from it. Let it sharpen you. Because what is born in silence cannot be broken by noise. What is forged in loneliness cannot be destroyed by crowds. What is trained in isolation becomes unstoppable in the open. Loneliness is sacred training. It's not punishment. It's preparation. And when you finally rise from it, you will understand why God removed everyone else. Because some journeys cannot be shared. Some crowns cannot be carried by groups. Some destinies require silence, and yours is one of them. Breaking. The very word people avoid. They think breaking means failure, weakness, collapse. But here's the truth no one wants to face. The break was never the end. The break was the beginning. Every betrayal that cut you apart was not a death sentence. It was the scalpel in God's hand. Every heartbreak that shattered your chest was not punishment. It was preparation. Every humiliation that made you crumble to your knees was not destruction. It was demolition before construction. God does not build palaces on rotten foundations. He tears down what's fragile so he can raise what's eternal. You thought the break would bury you. Instead, the break revealed you. When everything you depended on was stripped away. When the people you trusted proved false. When the love you gave was trampled. When the respect you deserved was denied. You thought you had lost everything. But what you really lost was illusion. An illusion had to die so truth could breathe. The break hurts because it kills the old you, the naive you, the chained you, the version of yourself that still believed comfort was safety. That version had to die in order for the warrior to rise. God let you break because he knew the person you were clinging to could not survive destiny. It wasn't cruelty. It was surgery, and surgery always bleeds before it heals. When you break, you see who you are, without props, without applause, without masks. And in that moment, God whispers, "Now I can use you." Because he cannot use what is chained to false attachments. He cannot elevate what is bound to fragile hands. He cannot crown what still bows to idols of approval. Breaking is the furnace that burns all of that away. Do not curse the break. Thank it. It was the most honest thing that ever happened to you. People lied, but the break told the truth. The truth that you were stronger than you knew. The truth that you could survive without them. The truth that your destiny was bigger than their betrayal. The truth that pain is not your enemy. Comfort is. You see, comfort lulls you into sleep, but breaking wakes you. Comfort chains you with smiles, but breaking cuts the rope. Comfort convinces you that you need them. Breaking forces you to see you don't. Without the break, you would have stayed small. Without the break, you would have settled for average. Without the break, you would have never touched the fire that now burns inside your chest. God broke you on purpose, not to ruin you, to reset you, to strip away everything that didn't belong in your future. You cried over people He never ordained for your path. You begged for doors He closed to save your life. You mourned what He removed because you couldn't see what He was preparing. But He saw it. He saw the chains you clung to. He saw the fake love you mistook for real. He saw the fragile foundation you built your identity on. And so, He broke it. The break was the beginning of clarity. The day you stopped begging. The day you stopped shrinking. The day you stopped apologizing for your own strength. Pain became the doorway to purpose. Loneliness became the path to power. Silence became the furnace of growth. The moment you broke was the moment you began. Look back at the scars. They're not evidence of defeat. They're blueprints of construction. Every scar says, here is where the old me ended. Here is where the new me began. Every scar screams, you tried to kill me, but you forged me. Every scar whispers, the break was the beginning. And here's what you must carry now. You don't rise in spite of breaking. You rise because of it. The very thing you thought ended you was the exact thing God used to build you. They thought they destroyed you when they walked away. They thought they humiliated you when they betrayed you. They thought they buried you when they broke you. But the break didn't end you. The break released you. From now on, never fear breaking again. Breaking is proof that something false is dying. Breaking is proof that chains are snapping. Breaking is proof that illusions are burning away. When life breaks you, ask yourself, what is God removing this time? Because every break has a purpose, even if it bleeds. Remember this truth. Diamonds are formed under pressure. Steel is hardened in fire. Warriors are revealed in breaking. You are not fragile. You are not disposable. You are not a victim. You are proof that breaking is not the grave. It is the gate. The break was the beginning. And now you rise. They left. They turned their back. They slammed the door. And you thought it was the end of you. You thought their exit was the death of your future. But listen carefully. Their exit was not your death sentence. Their exit was your freedom. The people you begged to stay were the very ones holding the chains around your neck. The ones you cried for were the ones suffocating your potential. And you didn't see it because you were blinded by attachment, blinded by loyalty, blinded by the illusion that their presence equaled love. But God saw the truth. Their presence was the cage. And when they left, the prison door opened. That's why you must stop romanticizing abandonment. Not everyone who exits your life is a loss. Some exits are liberation disguised as heartbreak. Some exits are deliverance disguised as betrayal. Some exits are freedom disguised as rejection. You mourned them because you thought you needed them, but you didn't. If you needed them, they'd still be here. The fact that they're gone is proof they were never meant to carry your future. Think about it. If they were supposed to walk with you, God would have kept them by your side. If they were essential to your destiny, no betrayal could have separated them. If they were truly for you, nothing in hell could have torn them away. Their absence is evidence. Evidence that they were never built for the next chapter of your story. Evidence that their hands weren't strong enough to carry a crown. Their exit broke you in the moment, but it freed you for a lifetime. You didn't see it at first, but over time you realized the silence gave you space. The betrayal gave you clarity. The loss gave you power. They left, and suddenly the air became lighter. Suddenly, you weren't dragging dead weight anymore. Suddenly you discovered you could walk without them, run without them, fly without them. Here's the dark truth. If they had stayed, you never would have risen. They would have clipped your wings with guilt, drained your fire with need, chained your soul with manipulation, and you would have called it love. You would have thanked them while suffocating. That's why God had to let them leave, because you wouldn't let go. You would have begged for your own prison. And so heaven tore it away violently to make sure you could breathe again. Stop calling it loss when it was liberation. Stop calling it betrayal when it was breakthrough. Stop calling it rejection when it was redirection. Their exit was your exodus. An exodus always feels like chaos until you see the promised land. The moment they left, your destiny began to breathe. The moment they turned their back, your spirit began to rise. The moment they closed the door, God opened the one you were always meant to walk through. You didn't lose anything worth keeping. You were delivered from everything that was holding you hostage. And here's the part they don't want you to realize. They thought walking away broke you. They thought their absence destroyed you. They thought leaving you behind made you irrelevant. But instead, their exit removed the dead weight that was slowing you down. Their absence gave you room to grow. Their betrayal gave you the hunger to rise. Their silence gave you the discipline to move in darkness. Freedom rarely comes dressed as peace. It usually comes wrapped in pain. Because chains don't snap without hurting. Attachments don't tear without bleeding. But bleeding isn't the end, it's the beginning. And what you felt as loss was actually the first breath of freedom. Now you stand lighter, now you stand stronger, now you stand freer. And one day you'll look back and realize the very people you begged for were the ones who would have kept you crawling. The very hands you reached for were the ones tying the ropes. The very loyalty you clung to was the very chain around your throat. God knew you'd never cut it yourself. So he let them cut it for you by leaving. And now you see, their exit was not rejection. It was release. So let them go. Let them stay gone. Don't chase what God has already removed. Don't beg for the return of what heaven has already called poison. Don't water the weeds. He pulled out of your garden. Their exit was your freedom. Their absence was your deliverance. Their departure was the door to your destiny. Remember this, every time someone leaves, you didn't lose. You were set free. And freedom is always the beginning of power. Not every chain breaks with noise. Not every removal comes with an explanation. Sometimes God rips people from your life and leaves you with nothing but silence. No apology, no closure, no last conversation, just gone. And it confuses you because the human heart craves answers. You want to know why. You want to know what you did wrong. You want to know what changed. But heaven doesn't waste time explaining what hell was using to destroy you. Chains don't always fall with drama. Sometimes they just slip off in the middle of the night, and you're left wondering if something's missing. That's how God works when you don't even realize what you're tied to. Because if he explained everything, you'd fight him. You'd beg for the chain back. You'd call bondage love. You'd call manipulation loyalty. You'd call deadweight destiny. So instead of explaining, he acts. Swiftly, quietly, without negotiation. Silence is not neglect. Silence is protection. When someone exits without warning, that's not betrayal. That's mercy. Mercy that spared you from 1,000 more cuts. Mercy that spared you from wasting more years. Mercy that spared you from bonds you didn't have the strength to sever yourself. You didn't choose it, but you needed it. The silence is brutal because it forces you to confront your attachment. You replay conversations, you dissect memories, you torture yourself with what-ifs. But the truth is simple. It had to end, and God refused to let your weakness keep it alive. He won't explain, because explanations tempt you to chase. He'll leave you with silence, because silence closes doors in ways words never can. This is why you must stop demanding closure from people. You don't need closure when God has already closed it. Their silence is your closure. Their absence is your closure. Their inability to explain is proof that God ripped them away before their poison finished spreading. Accept the silence. It is louder than words. Here's the education hidden in this pain. Chains are not always visible. Some chains are disguised as comfort. Some chains are disguised as history. Some chains are disguised as family, romance, opportunity. You think you need them. You think you'll collapse without them. So God removes them without your permission because he sees the prison you can't. And when those chains fall, the world doesn't clap. There's no parade. There's no dramatic victory. Just silence. But that silence is sacred. Because it's in that silence you finally hear yourself again. It's in that silence you finally hear God again. And it's in that silence you realize the weight you carried was never love. It was bondage. Stop misinterpreting the silence. Stop calling it abandonment. Stop calling it punishment. It's rescue. It's deliverance. It's the divine hand of God cutting ropes you never had the courage to cut yourself. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is God saying, "This is over. Don't go back." Chains fall in silence for a reason. If it was loud, you'd chase the noise. If it came with an explanation, you'd argue. If it ended with closure, you'd reopen it. Silence leaves no room for negotiation. It's final. It's decisive. It's protection. The ones who left without a word, let them. Don't dig for explanations from people who never had the capacity to carry you. Don't beg for answers from those who were the chains themselves. Let silence be enough. Let absence be the message. Let God's decision stand. Because what's coming doesn't require them. What's coming needs you free. What's coming demands space they would have filled with distraction. What's coming requires you to rise without their hands holding you down. That's why the silence is sacred. It's not loss, it's preparation. Chains fall in silence, but you'll only hear it if you stop chasing noise. Stop searching for answers in dead places. Stop replaying old conversations. Stop mourning people who were never designed to stay. Look forward. The silence is the sound of freedom. And freedom is always louder than explanations. Before God removes them, He always lets them show you who they really are. That's the law. The enemy never leaves quietly. They expose themselves first. Masks fall. Smiles fade. The truth slips out in moments of arrogance. And what you thought was loyalty reveals itself as envy. What you thought was love reveals itself as manipulation. What you thought was friendship reveals itself as poison. God doesn't want you blind, so He gives you glimpses, subtle signs, sharp moments when their words cut too deep, their silence feels too cold, their energy shifts from supportive to suffocating. Those aren't accidents. Those are revelations. Heaven is pulling the mask off in front of your eyes. So when the removal comes, you won't mistake it for betrayal. You'll recognize it as justice. The enemy always reveals themselves before the fall. Always. They can't hide forever. Jealousy leaks through fake compliments. Hatred seeps through their tone. Their plans slip through jokes. And you feel it. Deep in your spirit, you know something isn't right. That's God's warning. That's His way of saying, don't trust the mask. Watch their hands. Watch their eyes. Watch the patterns. But here's the painful part. Most people ignore the signs. They excuse it. They call it stress, misunderstanding, miscommunication. They lie to themselves because the truth hurts too much. But ignoring the truth doesn't change it. Enemies don't love you. They only pretend until the opportunity comes to strike. And when it does, you finally see them for what they always were. Don't curse the exposure. It's a gift. Better to see the snake before it bites. Better to see the knife before it strikes. Better to know the truth than to keep living in illusion. The exposure is God's mercy. The removal is His justice. Together, they set you free. Notice something. Enemies don't just reveal themselves to you. They reveal themselves to others too. Slowly, their mask slips in public. Their lies don't line up. Their stories contradict. Their jealousy bleeds through their words. And people begin to see the cracks. That's how God works. He lets their own actions destroy their reputation. You don't need to expose them. You don't need to fight back. They expose themselves, and in doing so, they collapse. The enemy doesn't understand this law. Projection is confession. Everything they accuse you of is really what they are. Everything they mock in you is what they fear in themselves. Their insults aren't about you. They're mirrors of their own soul. And when they keep projecting, they eventually confess to everyone watching who they really are. That's exposure. That's the justice of silence. You prayed for God to show you the truth. This is how He answers. He lets the enemy speak too much. He lets them show too much. He He lets their envy spill out until even you can't deny it. And once the mask is off, you can't go back. You can't unsee it. You can't pretend it's love anymore. That exposure breaks the illusion. That break sets you free. And understand this, exposure always comes before elevation. God won't let you rise while snakes are in your circle. He won't pour blessings where betrayal sits at the table. He won't anoint you while poison still touches your shoulders. So before he lifts you, he reveals them. Before he crowns you, he cuts them off. Before he blesses you, he exposes the hands trying to sabotage you. That's why you should thank God for the exposure. Yes, it hurts to see the truth. Yes, it burns to realize the people you trusted were enemies in disguise. But better pain than poison. Better heartbreak than betrayal dragging on for years. Better silence than chains. Exposure is ugly, but it is freedom. The enemy revealed themselves not because you were weak, but because your light was too strong to hide their darkness any longer. They couldn't play the role anymore. They couldn't keep the mask on. You grew, and in your growth, their disguise collapsed. You didn't lose them, they lost their cover. So don't mourn the exposure, celebrate it, because it means God is moving. It means he's protecting you. It means you are being set apart for something bigger, something chains and snakes can't survive. Remember this truth, enemies can't hide forever. Their hate will reveal them. Their envy will betray them. Their own words will be their undoing. And when it happens, don't chase them, don't argue, don't explain, just let them go. The exposure was God's gift. The removal was his plan. And your freedom is the result. This is the part they never expected you to reach. The part after betrayal, after rejection, after abandonment. The part after the tears dried, the silence stretched, the loneliness carved, discipline into your bones. This is where you rise. And for the first time, you rise without chains. You've carried dead weight for too long. People you thought you needed. Relationships that drained you. Attachments that suffocated you. You thought their presence gave you strength, but it was their absence that unlocked your power. Chains disguise themselves as comfort. They trick you into believing you can't survive without them. But once they fall, you discover the truth. You are always stronger without them. Freedom is heavy at first. It feels like loss. It feels like being abandoned. But slowly, the weight shifts. Slowly, you realize the air is cleaner without them. Slowly, you discover how much faster you can move when you're not dragging people who never wanted you to win. Rising without chains means your energy is finally yours. Not stolen, not drained, not manipulated. Pure, yours. And when you rise, they can't understand it. They expected you to collapse without them. They thought their exit destroyed you. They believed they were your lifeline when all they ever were was a leash. And now you've cut the leash, and you're sprinting into a future they'll never touch. That's the irony of chains. They think you need them, when in reality, they need you. God had to remove them because you would have never removed them yourself. You would have stayed chained by guilt, by fear, by loyalty to people who never carried the same weight for you. But God doesn't negotiate with chains. He breaks them. And the moment they snapped, your rise became inevitable. Because no matter how much potential you carry, chains will always keep you crawling. God didn't create you to crawl. He created you to climb. Now you're climbing, alone. And it terrifies them. It terrifies them to watch you build without their input, succeed without their applause, breathe without their validation. They see you detached, disciplined, determined, and it eats them alive because the control they had is gone forever. You've risen into independence, and independence is the final stage of freedom. But here's the lesson. Freedom isn't just walking away from them. Freedom is walking away from the need for them. Chains are not only people, they're also illusions. The illusion that you need closure. The illusion that you need their apology. The illusion that you can't move forward until you understand why. But rising without chains means you stop waiting for answers. You stop needing explanations. You move forward without permission. That's real power. Not caring what broke, only caring what's ahead. And in that state, you become unstoppable. Because chains are not just external, they're internal. The need to please, the fear of rejection, the addiction to validation. Those were the shackles that kept you silent. And rising without chains means you finally killed them. You finally looked in the mirror and said, I need nothing but God and discipline. That is the predator mindset. That is the chosen mindset. That is the mindset that terrifies every enemy you've ever had. Understand this. People who once mocked you will now study you. People who once doubted you will now fear you. People who once tried to chain you will now watch you rise above them, powerless to stop it. And that's not revenge, that's justice. Divine justice. Because God's plan was never for you to stay in their cage. God's plan was for you to show them what happens when chains fall. Chains falling means you move differently now. You no longer explain. You no longer defend. You no longer beg for a seat at their table. You build your own. You no longer fear being alone. You no longer cry when people leave. You no longer feel small in silence. Chains falling means you've reached the stage where nothing external can break you, because nothing external defines you. Rising without chains isn't loud. It doesn't need noise. It doesn't need approval. It's quiet, but dangerous. It's silent, but powerful. People look at you and sense something different, something unshakable, something untouchable. That's the aura of someone who has been through betrayal, through rejection, through breaking, and rose without begging for chains again. And here's the truth. They can't follow you here. Chains don't survive altitude. The people God removed can't exist at the level you're rising to. The air is too thin. The light is too heavy. The purpose is too great. That's why they had to go. Because if they stayed, they'd suffocate you. If they stayed, they'd sabotage you. If they stayed, they'd ruin the blessing waiting at this level. So stop mourning them. Stop questioning God. Stop wondering if you could have saved what he already killed. Chains are not meant to be fixed. They're meant to be broken. And once they're gone, you don't look back. You move. You rise. You take flight without them. Because this is the destiny you are built for, not crawling with chains, but climbing without them. Not begging for love, but moving in strength. Not being controlled by fear, but walking in freedom. Their exit wasn't your death. It was your deliverance. Their absence isn't your weakness. It's your weapon. And the fact that you're still standing is proof enough. The chains are gone, and nothing can stop what God has chosen. This is rising without chains. Dangerous, silent, unstoppable. Strength is not always spoken. Sometimes it's felt before a word leaves your lips. That's what happens after chains are broken, after betrayal is survived, after rejection is transformed into fire. Strength becomes your aura. You no longer have to declare it. You no longer have to prove it. People sense it when you walk into the room. They feel it in your silence, in your composure, in your refusal to be moved by the same storms that once shook you to the core. This aura isn't built overnight. It's not born from pretending. It's carved from suffering, from discipline, from solitude. You earned it in the shadows, in the nights where no one was watching, in the mornings where no one clapped. You earned it by not collapsing when everything in you wanted to quit. That's why it radiates now without effort. Strength that's real doesn't need to announce itself. It leaks into the atmosphere, and people notice. They don't always understand what changed, but they know something did. They remember the version of you who used to beg, who used to break down, who used to explain themselves endlessly. That person is gone. What's left is sharper, colder, calmer. The aura you carry now isn't arrogance. It's survival distilled into presence. It says without words, I've been through fire and I am still standing. That kind of energy commands respect without asking for it. Strength as an aura isn't about being loud. It's about being unshakable. It's the way insults slide off you without reaction. It's the way betrayal no longer surprises you. It's the way silence feels like home instead of prison. People feel that stability. They sense that nothing they do can move you anymore. And that scares them, because control doesn't work on someone who's already learned to live without it. Here's the truth. Once you rise without chains, strength follows you like a shadow. You can't hide it. You can't dim it. Even if you try, people will feel it, because your aura is no longer fragile. It's steel. It's fire. It's authority written into your posture, your eyes, your stillness. Weak people sense it and shrink. Toxic people sense it and flee. Real ones sense it and respect it. But let me be clear, this aura is not for show. It's not performance. It's not about looking strong. It's about being unbreakable at the core. You don't wear it like a mask. It bleeds from you naturally because you've lived what others only pretend to survive. And that's why no one can fake it. They can mimic the posture. They can imitate the silence. But when pressure hits, they crumble. You don't, because your aura wasn't borrowed. It was forged. Spiritually, this aura is favor. When God removes chains, He doesn't just free you. He clothes you with His presence. That's why people can't explain why you intimidate them, why you inspire them, why they either respect you or resent you instantly. It's not just your strength they're feeling. It's God's stamp on your life declaring, this one was chosen. This one cannot be touched. That stamp makes your presence louder than any speech. And here's the dark side of it. Your aura makes enemies uncomfortable. They'll whisper, they'll mock, they'll throw stones, but deep down, they know they can't touch you. They know the control they once had is gone. They know the chains they used to pull are broken, and every time they see you stand taller, move calmer, act untouchable, it burns them alive. Your aura is their punishment. They don't just remember losing you, they feel it every time your presence reminds them they never broke you. Strength as an aura also teaches you a dangerous kind of patience. You don't rush anymore. You don't chase. You don't beg for things not aligned with your destiny, because strength isn't frantic. Strength is stillness. It's knowing that what belongs to you cannot be taken. It's knowing that loss is always a lesson, never an end. It's knowing that everything they thought would bury you only became your soil. And people feel that assurance on you. It unnerves them because they're still panicking about things you mastered in silence. You want to know how you can tell you've reached this stage? Watch how people react to you. Some will avoid your eyes. Some will feel uneasy in your presence. Some will respect you without even knowing why. That's because aura speaks louder than words. It bypasses logic and cuts straight to spirit. And yours screams, I cannot be chained again. But don't mistake this aura for invincibility without discipline. Strength must be maintained. That presence you carry is not the result of one victory. It's the accumulation of every day you chose resilience over collapse, silence over begging, growth over comfort. Lose that discipline and the aura fades. Keep it and it only grows darker, sharper, stronger. The best part? You no longer need to announce revenge. You no longer need to prove anything. Your aura is revenge enough. Your presence is the declaration. Your survival is the proof. You don't chase those who betrayed you. They chase the ghost of who they thought you were. You don't explain yourself to doubters. They drown in the evidence of your strength. You don't answer to those who tried to chain you. The chains on the ground answer for you. And spiritually, this is where God's justice shines brightest. He didn't just remove them. He elevated you. He didn't just break chains. He gave you an aura the chains can't touch again. You are covered, protected, empowered. That's why no matter who tries to rise against you, they fall. Because your aura carries more than survival. It carries divine authority. This is what rising without chains leads to. A presence that speaks before you do. A silence that commands respect. A calm that unnerves enemies. A discipline that no one can break. This is strength as an aura, and it is yours now. Walk in it. Don't apologize for it. Don't shrink it to make others comfortable. Don't dim it for people who still live chained. Your aura is proof of what God has done. Proof of the fire you endured. Proof of the chains you broke. Proof that you are no longer the person you once were. Strength is now your aura. An aura never lies. They're gone. The people you once cried for, the ones you begged to stay, the ones you thought you couldn't live without. They are no longer here, and that is not your tragedy. That is your confirmation. Their absence is not emptiness. Their absence is evidence. Evidence that you were chosen. Chosen people never walk crowded paths. Chosen people are always set apart. God does not elevate you while keeping chains on your neck. He doesn't crown you while snakes are still coiled around your feet. That's why He removed them. That's why he silenced them. That's why he cut them off in ways that felt brutal, confusing, unfair. Because chosen ones cannot rise surrounded by parasites. You mistook their departure as rejection, but heaven doesn't reject what it designs. Heaven refines, heaven removes. Heaven clears the battlefield so the warrior can stand alone. You wanted loyalty, God wanted destiny. You wanted comfort, God wanted transformation. You wanted them, God wanted you free. And when heaven makes a choice, it is final. Stop crying over the ones who left. They were never meant to walk into the next chapter with you. If they were part of your calling, they'd still be standing beside you. But they're not. And that should tell you everything. They weren't strong enough for where you're going. They weren't pure enough for the anointing you carry. They weren't chosen like you were. Chosen comes with separation, always. Joseph was betrayed by brothers. David was hunted by a king. Jesus was abandoned by friends. The path of the chosen has always been lonely, bloody, misunderstood. You thought their absence was failure. But look again, it's the mark of calling. It's the sign that God set you apart. Not everyone can breathe in the altitude you're climbing to. That's why they had to go. And now you rise differently. You move with silence. You carry authority in your aura. You stand with scars as proof of survival. The same people who mocked you are forced to watch as you walk into rooms they can't enter. The same ones who underestimated you now whisper about how they lost access to what God preserved. That's the consequence of underestimating a chosen one. You can't kill what heaven protects. Their exit gave you freedom, but their absence also gave you clarity. Now you see who you are without them. Now you see the strength you carry when you stop depending on their validation. Now you see how unnecessary they were to your survival. And here's the dangerous part. Once you realize you don't need them, you can never be chained again. That's why chosen people are untouchable, because they no longer cling to what God has cut. Do not waste another tear begging for closure. Do not waste another breath explaining your value. Do not waste another moment asking why they left. The answer is written into your spirit. They were never meant to rise with you. Some doors are only wide enough for one person. Some mountains can only be climbed alone. Some crowns are too heavy to share. You are chosen. That means you'll lose people. That means you'll be misunderstood. That means you'll carry weight others can't. But it also means this: no one can stop you. Not betrayal, not rejection, not abandonment, not even the people who thought they had you chained. Because God Himself decided that you would rise. And when heaven chooses, hell trembles. They are gone, but you are still here. And being here is proof that you didn't need them. Being here is proof that you were preserved. Being here is proof that destiny cannot be derailed by human hands. They left. They betrayed. They rejected. And still you breathe. Still you rise. Still you move forward with fire in your chest and steel in your spirit. That's what chosen looks like. So let the past stay buried. Let the chains stay broken. Let the people who left watch from the sidelines as you ascend. You don't owe them explanations. You don't owe them access. You don't owe them your silence. You owe only one thing: to honor the God who chose you by rising without apology. Remember this final truth: chosen ones don't chase. Chosen ones don't beg. Chosen ones don't explain their calling to those who were never meant to understand it. Chosen ones rise. Chosen ones walk alone. Chosen ones carry scars as armor, loneliness as fuel, and faith as fire. And that is exactly who you are now. They're gone. You're chosen. And nothing can stop what's already been decided.